And so, with that, we're going to go ahead and get into point 17 here, which is get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda, soften the curriculum, get control of the teachers' associations, put the party line in textbook.
Yeah.
So, pretty much, this is gain control of the schools and start brainwashing the children, which something that we see all throughout time that Satan wants to do is in order to destroy the family, in order to corrupt the country, you have to get to the kids. And we've seen that with everything from the CRT, the critical race theory, to the Common Core, where it's not 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 can equal elephant, as long
Yep.
as you just tell us how you get there.
Yep.
And then the BLM teaching, the alphabet stuff. I mean, the Teachers Association is just go ahead and removing rights and transparencies from parents on multiple levels, so much so that you're a domestic terrorist if you go against what the Teacher Association wants to do. Satan is targeting the little ones.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We don't have to go too far back. What was it called? Give me a second. They go Veritas, Project Veritas, right? Yep. And even what's crazy, you've got a guy like James O'Keefe who's blowing the lid off of a bunch of people. What happens to him? His own board gets rid of him.
They were compromised. They got compromised.
Of course they did. And this is exactly one of the things that we're reading about here. There is this push to infiltrate and then break apart, right? That's exactly what Satan does. He will infiltrate and then he'll destroy. And so what we're seeing here is we're seeing the same thing that's happening in the physical is exactly what happens in the spiritual. That these are the tactics of the enemy. In spiritual warfare, this is exactly what Satan does. And this is, he opposes God. That is Satan's MO. Whatever God does, I'm going to try to counterfeit it. Whatever he does here, I'm going to try to destroy it over here on this side. And so I said it earlier on today, God hates each and every person, and that unfortunately includes children. And what we see here under point 17, mind you, that this was written in the 50s. In the 50s. This is when people still went to church on Sundays. This is when you tried to go buy something on Sundays and everything was closed. There really wasn't any obscenity on TV. I mean, they were wholesome shows for the most part. As far as I remember, they were wholesome because I used to watch the reruns when I was in junior high. Yeah. And so they were wholesome shows that you could watch. You make fun of them all you want, but you could literally let your 5-year-old kid watch them. And so we come from a place where God was honored and respected, because even those that weren't considered believers, those that didn't, call themselves Christians, they still respected the fact that Christ was honored on Sunday. And I think it was Curtis Bauer said when he was around 7 years old, there was an older guy who cussed around him, didn't realize that he was there. And when the guy realized that Curtis was there, he apologized profusely to him because he had cussed in front of a kid. And so we see how far we've come. And when we look at the schools, you remember Project Veritas went undercover with a bunch of these teachers, and they were just espousing communist ideologies in the classroom, and it was just in your face. It was blunt. They had no problem doing it. Some of these teachers even had it was a guy, and he even had all these flags. He had pictures of Mao, he had pictures of Lenin, he had the alphabet flag in there, and he had no problem. When you hear these people talk about it, they have no problem when they don't know they're being filmed. It's unfortunately, this is exactly what this guy said was they're trying to do. Well, they did it. They went to the university level first, and they were able to capture that. And then they moved to the high school, elementary. And I mean, they're going as young as preschool. Yep. And that's the whole point. That's the ideology. That's the push behind it. We got to capture their minds before anybody else does. And that's why we see a big push to remove parents' authority from the children. It's because if we can manage to remove the authority, which is God-given, again, here we go, there's a God hierarchy here. If we can manage to remove that hierarchy from, Satan counterfeits, we can separate the family, and then we get a hold of the minds of the children, well, then we got them. We got them at a young age. That was Hitler's MO. We got to capture the youth from a very young age. It's this regurgitation throughout history. But what we see now is we're in the last of the last days. I firmly believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And what makes things different then and now is the fact that back then it was relegated to certain areas. Now this is on a global push. This is a global movement to captivate and capture and control everybody, from the oldest to the youngest. And if they can manage to do that, well, they can implement what they're trying to do. And I'm sure we'll get to that eventually, but we've got that. They've got control. I mean, the Teachers Association, Teachers Union, I have to say, are probably some of the worst, unfortunately, unions out there. And I'm not going to say much more just for the sake of the podcast. And look, I don't want to dog all teachers, okay? Because I know that there are some really good God-fearing men and women that are doing their best to share Jesus the best that they can in the lives and influence the lives of these kids for good. And they're doing a great job, and they're fighting the good fight. So we need to pray for them. But at the end of the day, as a whole, they have managed to get control of the schools from top to bottom. And this isn't something that is relegated to the youth, right? To guys that look like you and me with their hats backwards or anything like that. I remember Curtis Bauer said in the early 90s, he went to Berkeley because he heard they were going to have a meeting of communists, right? People that wanted to talk about communism and here in the United States. And he thought, hey, this is good. I want to go in there. I want to see what this is about. And he thought he was going to run into a whole bunch of, grunge kind of dudes, university level guys, like, hats backwards. And he said,
frat guys.
The frat guys. Yeah, that's what he thought he was going to run into. And when he walked in, he was blown away that the entire auditorium was filled with suits, older men, gray-haired men with briefcases and suits talking about the takeover of America. And they outlined exactly how they were going to do it. So this isn't something new. This is something that they've been pushing, because you got to remember, our country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Yes, not all our leaders were God-fearing men, but they were theists. And at some point, they believed in the fact that there was a higher power, right? They called it God. But at the end of the day, they realized that we were accountable. But the majority of them were God-fearing men. And our country was founded on those principles. And again, I have to reiterate, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but whatever God starts, Satan's MO is to thwart it. And he's fought it from the very, very inception of our country. As you read history, whether it's the wars, whether it is at the college and university level, at Yale, at Harvard, Princeton, all those Ivy Leagues, they started out good. They started out to train pastors and preachers to go and share the gospel of Jesus Christ in their craft. And look at how far we've come today. So, and this is only going to get worse. This is only going to get worse, unfortunately. So I could keep going, but I think I'll stop there.
No, it's good, man. It's good. Yeah, that's the thing, is you look at this, and like you said, there's an order, God's order of how it is. And it's just like the family. That's exactly how the church is supposed to be too. You've got Christ up on top. Then there's the man, the woman, and then the child. And it has nothing to do with the value of, because everybody wants to say, why are you putting the woman lower? And that's another aspect of what we're going on with the feminist thing that we'll touch on a little bit later. But he does it that way because the man is supposed to be there to protect the woman, and the woman is there to protect the child. But Satan knows that if he can just get to the kid, he's already in the house and he blows it all up. So that's why it's important to understand that. So in order to take over a country, not only do you have to take over the leadership to bring this stuff into the schools, but then once you take out the child, there goes the family, and everything is free reign at that point for Satan.
That's right. You got it.
It's literally that simple. People want to make it complicated, but it's that simple. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the school. It starts with the school. You get to the youth, you start taking this stuff out. You get rid of everything from the spiritual stuff to bringing in the woke isms of all that stuff, to the point of just plain dumbing them down. Yeah. And you do that, and there's your useful idiots right there.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me add something in there real quick. One thing that a lot of us might not be aware of, and I'm sure some of us are, is the fact that one of the big pushes that they're trying to do right now, and we're going to talk about this. I think it's point 24, but to bring to the immorality and the obscenity in the schools, and so now you have a fight that's happening on at the libraries of public schools,
Yep.
whether it's high school, junior high, because they have literally put pornographic material and books in these libraries, and these kids can go and check these out, and the parents probably have no idea that this stuff is in there. And folks, let me tell you, there's a group called the Capital Resource Group, and it is a fabulous tool. If you're parents, I would highly encourage you guys to go check it out. But they put out information. They'll send you e-blasts on different states and what they're trying to do. It's mostly here in California, but unfortunately, this has enveloped the entire country. And so as much as someone might want to say, California, California, this is in states like Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas. And so these are places, Arkansas as well, places where you think that was the Bible Belt. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore what state you live in. Yeah, there's still a certain level of conservatism within these states, but I guarantee you this is going to engulf and envelop the entire country. And the pornography and perversion that is being shown to the kids at all levels is sickening. Let me tell you, from someone, unfortunately, who's come from that scene, you know, it is disgusting. And this is the kind of stuff, this is the ideology that they're pushing. This is the junk, and they don't want to give parents any say at all, to the point where one of the cities, I believe it's in the state of either Maine or Massachusetts, one of those states, one of the school districts there now has come out and said parents cannot opt out of these kinds of curriculum.
Well, not even just that. You look at a couple years ago, the Department of Homeland Security declared any parents that rise up against these teachers associations are now deemed domestic terrorists.
It's crazy. That's exactly where we're at. If you strip the parents of their authority, then the state is able to come in and take it. You know what I mean? But God, always, like JD says, and I love it, but God. And I think one of the biggest reasons why this isn't all imploding is, I've said this many, many, many times before. The way I see things is, think about a massive dam and the floodgates of evil. I mean, evil is being held back by the Holy Spirit working through the life of the church, of the believer, the true remnant church. And I think of all of these leaks in the concrete, and the Christians are plugging all of those up, because if they wouldn't, then the entire structure would be compromised and that flood of evil will come. Well, that day is coming. It's called the rapture of the church. And when you remove the church from here, it is going to be, if you guys think it's bad now, we can't even imagine how ugly it's going to get on the flip side.
Yeah, our brains can't comprehend it.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.